Well, hello everybody. We are back. We are live. We've got Bernardo Fernandes on the screen right here. So good to have Bernardo back. It's been a while, my friend. It's been a while. For those who do not know, Bernardo is obviously known as the founder of the greatly known social media account of SelfPass. Uh, those who have been following him on Twitter, do not worry. We are not going to talk to about fives today.
Who knows?
Yeah, but for those who maybe not know, Bernardo is also one of the co-founders of this very website, thehockeysite.com. So we are very happy that Bernardo, you are back after a while that you have been concentrating on your coaching career and other events and projects in hockey related always. So but Bernardo contacted me a couple of weeks ago that he has done some research. He's been talking to a lot of people about youth development and talent development in specific, and that he thought he could give us a cool presentation. Well, knowing Bernardo, I am sure it will be. But before we jump in, say hi in the comments, everybody. Let us know where you're from so that we know that you're in the room. But don't be shy. Ask your questions in the comments, obviously. We will be dealing with most of the questions following the presentation, but if there's something that is worth interrupting Bernardo for, I will not hesitate either. So ask your questions in the comment sections here. And if you are up to it, you can also click the link that you found in the pinned comment on top, and then you can come on stage with us. Isn't that so, Johnny? Okay, Javi, welcome here. Christina, welcome here. So we've got already two Argentina people, coaches in the room here. Bernardo, the floor is all yours, my friend.
Okay, well, thank you for the very nice introduction, Ernst. Yeah, I'm very proud that I've helped you more than co-founded. I helped you with this project, and it's really nice to see that it's still a very stable platform for coaches to come and share their ideas and to discuss. And of course, it requires a lot of energy and work from your side, but I think the coaching, particularly the coaching community, needs to say thank you because unfortunately, I think we have good education platforms, but uh, like this one, I think that you are the unique place where different coaches come and share ideas. So yeah, great. I'm very proud to be
Most
a
most
part.
important thing is having fun, guys. It's having fun here. Talking hockey.
Let's discuss that later as well in my presentation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah. Maybe before just starting sharing the screen, I just had, as you said, I just had and have a couple of ideas that maybe confirm the ideas of many coaches that will be watching. But I have some ideas that I feel that might be challenging or might be new. I hope I have a couple of new ideas because I think that's more interesting to have ideas that might challenge what you already know or what you think you know. So, one remark I have is I know you always ask for as specific content as possible, um, but in this content was difficult for me to make it very specific. I will try my best to be very specific, particularly in the last part. But it's exactly one of the points I will make in my case is that it's difficult to have a one recipe fitting all in this kind of subject. So let's see how it goes.
Let's take it away, Bernardo. Let's take
All
it
right.
away.
So I will share the screen and of course I don't see the chat, but you will let me know when.
Absolutely. I will keep you informed then.
Okay, so let me share. So I hope you can see it now.
Yep, there we go.
I will just put the box a little bit lower. Yeah. All right. So maybe even before the cover image, I saw this quote a while ago, and then it struck me like it's a very I like this quote a lot because it also took me to the place where I would like to go in this presentation. That is, exactly the cult of efficiency and the cult of results. I think in modern society suffocates a little bit the flair or the creative or the imagination or the solutions that might not be the most effective at first and may for sure not the most pragmatic, but they might be necessary for one to explore his creativity and to explore or to create, let's say, in an analogy, to create more tools on his brain. So if I'm always thinking about the most pragmatic solution, I'm limiting myself to explore different options. So I thought this is a good setting of tone um, to start the presentation, because I think that's what we suffer a little bit in our current state of youth development. We are too focused in certain aspects that require the most pragmatic solutions. And therefore, because of that, we might be suffocating some individual capacity and some creativity. So I just wanted to start with that. Also, I wanted to say, because normally I know that people like to have the presentations. Ernst, I don't know what's the policy. I can send the presentation later on. I will just remove some images that might have copyrights, but the
Yep.
content I can share. So that should not be a
No, no
problem.
problem. If you share the presentation with me, I will put it in the website post for the on-demand viewers afterwards. So no
Okay.
problem there.
Okay, so basically, I came to Ernst with just open idea, and then he suggested that maybe we could do something around talent development done in a bit different way. So that's what I will try to focus. So just a short introduction about myself for the ones who don't know me. I am Portuguese. Uh, like that is the country in the world that have more hockey players, more hockey clubs, and the highest level of hockey. We are the big
Keep
hockey.
on dreaming. Keep on dreaming.
But this is just a small joke. But I come from Portugal, which is a small hockey country. But I think a big sports country, and this is a little bit my overview of my coaching career. I started in the Netherlands, which I think is a fantastic hockey country, and I recommend for anyone to spend 1 month or 1 year or 10 years coaching in the Netherlands, because the lifestyle there is um, unique. Around hockey is unique. Then I had a short experience in Belgium. Then I came to Germany for this club in Bremen called so far, and then I'm recently, since last summer, I'm in Groos Vlotbeck in a club in Hamburg. Meanwhile, I coached Portugal. First, I started as an assistant coach. Then I took over the team until just before the pandemic. And then recently, I'm helping my Croatian friends. I'm helping the staff of Croatia, and it's been. I had the first weekend last weekend. I was in Zagreb, helping the team in a small Four Nations tournament, and yeah, very looking forward to have this experience in a different country with a different culture, and of course in a smaller country. So any help in knowledge or resources is very welcome. Yeah. Meanwhile, as you said, also Ernst, I helped you the creation of the hockey site. Of course, I also created Self Pass. That may be the thing that I'm more famous for. If you want to see me moaning a lot, you should follow Self Pass on Twitter. If you want to see Self Pass just as a normal page, you can see on Facebook or Instagram. Then I also supported, or I was one educator for FIH Academy and Air Hockey, and very proud of that. I think they have a really cool, and they've been developing very cool coach programs. I'm not always very supportive of some management decisions from both FIH and Air Hockey, but that's nothing to do with with this presentation or the topic today. Okay, so what's the problem? I think it helps you when you want to dive into a certain topic to understand if there is a problem to solve or to to approach. And I was already with my mindset to create something on this when I saw this quote from Oliver Bierhoff. If I think some people that are more familiar with football, he was a big striker in football for Germany, so he's a very well-known guy in Germany, and I think in international football. And yeah, I think this quote summarizes a little bit the feelings and what I've been seeing lately. And I think for sure, I know that a couple of coaches that are here watching, they might have the same idea, that we talk a lot about creativity and empowering the players and skill, etc. But it seems that training is becoming too formal, or youth development is becoming too formal, and that is taking space for individualistic players. Of course, we are talking about team sport, and ultimately, you want players that fit in collective concepts. But I think a team will be always better if the 11 players that make the starting 11, they are more skilled and better decision makers than not. So I think we need to create some space for an organic development of particularly creative players. So I thought it was also interesting that he, particularly being a German that really normally like their structures and they like their organizations, he says that it's time to bring street football back to the clubs, create more space for creativity and pleasure. So that's my starting point for the case that I would like to make today. So briefly, just for you to understand, because I don't have an university degree or research on this, so everything is a bit it's a mixture between formal and informal. But the first thing I write, and actually I write more than I read, which is maybe it should be the other way around. But I'm always very interested, particularly in youth development. I think is one of the most fascinating areas of the sport, and I would like to challenge any coach, regardless your status or your position or your experience, to try to keep in touch, still try to keep in touch with the with youth hockey. Um, Another source that I forgot to put here, but is podcasts. I hear a lot of podcasts, and I think it's such an easy way to educate yourself, and it's also something that you can do while you are busy working or cooking or doing something else. Of course, my own experience. I've been coaching in different countries, and not only that, I've coached players from different nationalities, levels, backgrounds, and overall, you start to build your ideas, and you start to build your theories around certain topics. And also, okay, I've been lucky to, particularly through self-pass, but also in coaching courses and so on. And I think hockey, we have this great possibility that it's easy to build a nice and close network. And this is always a topic where it's easy to discuss, and it's with beer or something like that, you always touch in this topic about, okay, why is Belgium raising such a good players, or why Argentina is so strong there. So this is a recurring topic. But I think for me the most revealing experiences was actually in traveling. First in Argentina. This is an image from Argentina. I was there, I think, 5 years ago, and I traveled a little bit around the country. And one of the things I always wanted to do is to do some clinics, or to help in some clinics in some of the exotic hockey countries. So I got in contact with Lucas Camareri, that is a great coach in Argentina, one of the talented coaches now in the Argentinian scene. And I told them that I would like to do something with training, because of course self-pass is very famous in Argentina. And then he organized a clinic just for girls. I think we had 80 girls, and I had the help from Charo Lucetti, Piti Delia, Danis Roga. So these are former Leones, and they were just still in their peak, and they are still playing, of course. And for me was an interesting experience because they were all curious of me, of self pass, and what we have been doing in Europe. So the training was a little bit around creativity and skills, but who am I to go to Argentina and to teach them how to dribble and how to skill and how to do flair? So they were very curious and asking me a lot of questions before and after the training. But in the end of the training, I was the one astonished by the quality of their young players, but also to realize that in Europe, in particular in the advanced countries, the training settings are so advanced. Everyone has 2 or 3 water pitches. We have all the conditions. Although I thought the average player that I saw in that clinic was way more skilled than the average European player, let's say. So we can talk about that a bit later. But for me, it was curious to see that the majority of those players they train still in sand-based pitches. They had a lot of space limitations, uh, so they had, if you want to say, less learning conditions or less facilities, less logistics. Although, for several reasons, I think for cultural, social, style, coaching reasons, I thought they were way more. And you can see that the Argentinian players, when they play in Europe, they are still one of the most skilled players. So that was also very revealing for me. And another trip was to Morocco, and I think that was also astonishing for me. And I spent a lot of time actually just sitting around watching street football, street basketball, but also beach football. And for me, the most interesting was to see how the players self-regulated themselves and how disciplined they were. So there was no umpire, there was no coach, but they all get on time very early in the morning. I think this picture, it was, I think, around 8 in the morning, and they made the lines, they made the teams, they made the substitutions, and they really respected when there was a fault or when they needed to replace each other. So for me, it was also uh, very enlightening to see this experience. That is basically the experience that maybe more back in the days we all had in our school and on our school, on our neighborhood, in the park. And for one of the points I want to claim is that we are losing this a little bit, and for some reasons. To start, there is a different childhood nowadays. So, of course, what I just said about playing in the park, in the beach, in your neighbor, playing with older people, with younger people, boys and girls, the players that play football. But for instance, myself, I was in hockey, but we spend a lot of time outdoors. There is a very fun meme that I couldn't find, but I wanted to integrate in the presentation that was about back in the days, the parents were shouting in the end of the day for kids to come home to have their dinner, and the kids just wanted to keep on playing until until next day. And now parents are kind of pushing their kids, their sons and their daughters, to go outside to have a little bit more outdoor time. So I think that is a very important point, and it is a point, of course, in our area as sports. We cannot underestimate this because this gave a sense of playability and sense of games and a sense of sports that I think we are lacking now. Like outdoors time, sports time is purely or almost exclusively the time where children are in the hockey trainings, in the club hockey trainings. So there is an entire background and habits they don't have compared with some years ago. Of course, one of the main reasons is technology, virtual reality, more time on screen. And then I will link this with my third image here is overparenting in a double sense and kind of in a paradoxal sense. That is, in one way, parents are over concerned and overprotective nowadays. In the other hand, it's also too easy now to just to give an iPad or iPhone to your moaning son or daughter, and and let them have their entertainment. So I think that the fact that we have a different childhood for sure affects a new way of leaving sports. And I think there are also some external societal influencers in the way um, we are conducting youth sports. For sure, school system. I think we mirror a lot of what we see in terms of school systems, classroom style. We separate by ages. We get on. You get on this time. From 10 to 12, you are supposed to learn backhand slide, and you are supposed to learn forehand block. And then when you get 12 years old, you are supposed to learn aerial, and you are supposed to learn a backhand shot, and so on. So, and also I need to say that I am not against this, and I don't think we should go to a complete other extreme of just being uh, completely street minded. And I just want to make the case and share with you the thoughts that I think we are going too much on the side of a structured scholar kind of system. I would say as well that for sure the business world and the industrial world also influences the way we are looking to recruitment, the way we are looking to development. We expect certain results in a certain spectrum of time, um, but sports and hockey, it's a wicked science, let's say. So some people develop in different timing, some people learn in a different way, and some people need different stimulus as well. So it's very complex. This is a very complex equation, but so I don't try to solve it. I try to talk about it and maybe bring some ideas and bring some questions about it. And of course, for me, the last one is a double blade sword, as we say in Portugal, because we live in a result driven culture, and I think this is negative in one way. You see a lot of clubs, they remove the scoreboards in youth trainings. They don't have selection trainings for their teams, and they try to remove the mindset of having a result pressure, which I understand in a way. But I also would like to claim that it is important that we know how to manage and to induct stress and results, because ultimately later on children will need to perform in any way. In any case, they will need to perform. So i i, I think we need to be very careful with this ideas that participation is more important than competition. I think there should be a balance there. So participation is of course very important, but sports requires always a certain level of competition. It doesn't mean that all kids need to be trained and need to be prepared to be Olympic champions, but a training or a sports environment without a certain level of competition, it's a it's a futile. It doesn't make sense for me.
Agreed,
So,
agreed, Bernardo. Can I introduce two quick remarks here from the audience and get your thoughts on that already here? We had a remark from Bert de Boer from Kampong in the Netherlands, who says
mhm,
that in his opinion, the emphasis in many sports is on talent identification rather than talent development, and these are
mhm.
two separate fields, and the latter is often secondary. And then Johnny Karen from Ireland says, yeah, I completely agree with Bert on this. This is usually down to the budget of the national governing body, and who focus their spend on international competition rather than internal talent development for both players and coaches.
Yeah, I think it also. I'm trying to think about different sides of the spectrum. So, for instance, like countries like Netherlands and Belgium and so on, it's, let's say, I will not say easier, but there is a different club structure. If, for instance, if you are Amsterdam or Den Bosch, you know, naturally a lot of let's call it talents, they walk to you, and then it's just a way to identify and to scout them properly, and then to, okay, of course, also word them properly. But if you see in less developing countries, uh, and again, like the Argentinian example I use, I mean, you need to make the best of your talents. So it's a need to really develop them, because you have your cousin, your brother, and the friend of your cousin. So you really need to take the best out of this country. So it's not that one is better than the other, but I think it's also the realities stimulate different needs. But I think ultimately, regardless of if you are a huge club or a small club, I think that the investment and the focus on the proper development will always pay back. I would say. So I don't know if I answer the question properly. I understand that now it's easier to identify talents than to make them. Uh, but we can also go very philosophical. Is that, can you really make a talent? But this is a very complex and very wide discussion. So maybe I try to focus a little bit in terms of development and training, and in the end, Ernst, if there is space for debate, we can open the debate.
Of
If that makes
course,
sense.
you follow on with your presentation here now.
Okay, okay. Not that I don't want to cut, not that I don't want to cut the flow, but I just, I'm afraid if I'm answering probably, so maybe we can postpone that in the end. So another factor that I think that is driving our development in a certain fashion, it also has to do with the fact that our sport changed a lot in the last years, particularly due to some rules, but also equipment in terms of surfaces, but also sticks and shoes and so on. Um, but still, I would say that we are not stimulating as much creative and individualistic players as we could, at least in certain areas. So I write down a couple of factors or reasons for that. I think the first one is, I honestly think that we are losing those kind of old hockey artisans, the uncle type coaches that they were very dedicated. They did their exercises. They knew how to change your grip. They did some cool dribbling exercises. And I think we are losing those kind of figures. I see like the coaches now, they have their analysis programs. They know their tactical patterns. They know their backpacks, and they know everything. But I think I'm missing a little bit the the real in-depth biomechanical, like hands, footwork, those kind of insights. And there are many reasons for that. Is normally in your clubs, maybe you allocate your best coaches in the most high performance teams. Um, and then the other thing is, maybe for a lot of the players, is not so exciting to, there is not so much patience as well. So maybe there is not so exciting to spend 1 hour and a half running around with 20 kids. So okay, I don't know the reasons, but I definitely see the pattern that we are missing some artisans in the youth. Okay, I think we have seen the development of the athleticism, particularly in high level international hockey, and I think uh, top down we start to mirror that. We start to mirror what we see the best ones doing, and I think sometimes there is also a misconception between uh, power and athleticism. But yes, Australians are very powerful. Yes, Belgians have huge arms, but they are still fantastic, skilled players. So, but I think we might have this misconception that uh, to run is more important than to have a proper receiving of having making a flat pass. And I thought it was interesting that the new coach from the Netherlands, Jeroen Delmey, said that hockey is a sprinting game. I just read that, I think, last week, which is true, of course, and I think we can all agree with that. If you see, particularly if you see international hockey match live, you are amazed by the tempo and the speed of the game. So definitely we need that. But I think those influences also might have affected some of the, if we talk about Korean the technical side of the game, I think affected a little bit how we are looking to youth training. Then I bring, of course, a very familiar
A quick
word
remark.
for me,
Yeah.
self-pass.
Sorry, a quick remark from Gavi
Sure.
Telechea in between. International hockey has become mostly about the physical, and secondly, technical skills. And game intelligence is completely underestimated, which mirrors a lot from what you're saying here, I think. Huh?
Yeah, I think that's what I try to say, and of course I'm happy because recently not so much, but I discussed Javi a lot of okay ideas, and I think we think similar in certain aspects for sure. And he's also more involved than me in international hockey now, so I think it's nice that he says that because it confirms this idea. But I just want to make the remark: it is necessary that you are highly fit. It is necessary that you have some speed, but it is also necessary that you have some understanding of the game and you have some game intelligence. I think, as Javi said. So it's not easy to be a good hockey player, and some characteristics became more relevant in the last years because back in the days. So also I will go to my last point and then I will go to self pass. Now also with the limited substitutions and with self pass, the game became so dynamic that the old fashioned beer belly guy that was very skilled, that on his square meter was very strong, it's difficult to for that guy to be still a relevant hockey player. So
I'm feeling a little bit insulted right now. Huh?
I don't know.
I'm feeling a little bit insulted right now.
Well, you were a star back in the day. You were a star back in the days. But I hope you know what I mean. And my last point here is about self pass because I think I would say the same. It's a double blade sword because self pass created a more dynamic and a more demanding physical game, but also created a possibility for players to be a bit more self-decisive because you just can take the ball and take a decision. So there's a positive and negative about self-pass, but definitely brought more dynamic to the game. So again, more physical need to the game. So those were the reasons I think the game is being influenced in a certain way. I would like to make a separation here, although they mix a lot, but there is still a difference in terms of development, in terms of top sports. Okay, and sometimes in the way you conceptualize trainings, seasons, even social interaction with players. I think there needs to be a difference here, and I would do the distinguish. My presentation is more focused about development, but of course, a lot of times they touch with each other. Okay, so now trying to get a little bit more specific, if I wasn't so specific before, but again, it's difficult because define talent. It's difficult to define talent. I brought 5 different profiles from 4 different countries. Well, 4 or 3 if you want to consider that Payat is originally Argentinian. But my point here is that if you think about these players, they all have a different skill set. For instance, you can also claim that maybe Vanash is maybe the greatest hockey athlete ever, and which might sound strange at first because he's not a field player. So my point here, and if you would ask them, and I try to do a small research, I will give you a small anecdote. I work with Russell Garcia, GB legend, and we also work a lot in youth development in our club. And one of his points was that he said, okay, when I was growing up, we never used cones, or in a certain age with my coach, we never used cones, training cones. And if you see, there is a very famous clip from a Spanish magician, Nani Escudé, and he's drilling a lot of players, and he was very famous for the magic he had. And it was interesting because I was talking with some Spanish friends, and they said, okay, he was famous by doing a lot of at home, doing a lot of back and forehand, and he he loved to train in a very structured way with some drills. I didn't check with him, but I suppose this is true. So what I want to say is, and that will take me to my next slide. It's difficult to have golden recipes or a golden key to raise talent. Okay, this is a 1 hour training. You need to do start with warm up, and then you need to do this exercise, and then this and this. It's I think it's wrong when you think about a one way fits all to raise talent. Okay, so for me, the important is that we provide tools. Okay, different tools, and I brought some concepts, some buzzwords, if you want. And for me, they are. I try to make them in line so they are complementary, but sometimes they are contrary. And I will not. Don't ask me to choose what is more important because you need all these ingredients. That's why I put the blender there, because you need to expose the players to all these ingredients. And of course, depends also on your personal style and on your belief, on the match you will have, the period in the season you are in. So again, I'm sorry if I am not very specific. I'm sorry if I'm not being very by the book, but I think we need to be careful with the manuals and the way we are looking to sports, because this is such a wicked organic science, and that's why it's so great, and that's why it engages all in different ways, and that's why it's so nice when you sit with a beer with a coach and you learn, okay, he does this exercise like this, or he sees the tactic in a completely different way than me. I think that's so rich, and I think that's very fascinating, and particularly when you are dealing with young people, and if you are smart enough and experienced enough and you know how to play a little bit and when to give them some freedom, when you give them some routines, when to be very specific in your instructions, when to step down and just let them take the lead of the training of the match. And I will try to talk about that a little bit later. So I will try to share some ideas now. And the main idea, also following the introduction that Ernst made on social media, I make a case to ditch a little bit the school and the superstructural way to look to youth development, and try to bring um, street organic beach park fun, if you want, although for me this is always a very tricky word, to bring this environment for your formal training sessions, for your formal club structures. I think we need somehow, we cannot ditch the structures we have in clubs, because ultimately that's the difference why the developed countries, they perform on a stable basis on the highest events. It's because at some point it's important that you create these professional environments and conditions for players. So that's why I told you there is a certain difference between development and top sport or high performance, whatever you want to call it. It's necessary that at some point you have players becoming athletes, and athletes being in this high performance lifestyle environments, if you really want to reach the highest level of your sport. But conceptually, I think it's important that we need to bring a little bit more organic experience to the players within our serious formal club structures. So a couple of ideas. Again, it was difficult for me to be very specific here, but I will just like to challenge you with a couple of ideas. I think back in the days, you saw there was a way more mixing of ages and gender. You see, uh, this is a very sensitive topic here, so I hope I don't say anything wrong. But you saw back in the days, girls, they played with older boys because there weren't not enough girls in their team, and you see, for them was such a rich environment because they needed to be a bit faster, they needed to be a bit more alert because they were playing with older boys. And if you see the case, for instance, from Gigi Oliva, that was a little bit the case because she was always around her older brother, and apparently she was also always around uh, boys playing hockey, and you see that kind of paid back. So uh, I think there's a nice quote from Mesut Özil that is still very famous German football player, and he said that he was always the smallest guy in the trainings. His advantage was that he was always playing with his older brother and his cousin in the street, and he said, because I didn't have the time, because physically they were always bigger than me, I needed to be smarter. I needed to think faster than the older guys and the bigger guys. And they said that developed me, that made me develop a certain vision and a certain speed of thinking that other players might not have. So I think that that's important. I like this code post project that is basically, if you have the opportunity in early stages, it will be healthier maybe to get the players that live around each other together, because they probably are classmates, they are neighbors. So outside of the hockey pitch, they can bicycle together, or they can play in school together, or they can play in their neighborhoods together. And I think um, that's a very healthy experience for young players to have. And if you think, I'm sure everyone watching here knows about a team where the players were cousins, or they were living in the same street, or they were in the same class. And that, trust me, played a role for these guys to be a good team, and to also push each other, to stimulate each other. I always think that a good group of players is the best coach. Is is the best coach you can have. Is way more important than, of course, if you have a good coach on top of that, brilliant. Then I think this is also important of training opportunities. If you have like I would not say okay 5, that would be very wrong for me, but if you have a small pitch around your normal training pitch, and if you also maybe can create, I don't know if rules, but if you can create the invitation for the players to go a little bit earlier, so they are playing those 15 minutes before the match, they are just smashing balls, or they are playing a rondo, or they're trying to dribble each other. Those are very rich learning platforms. I will add also here free play. Free play is a very broader concept, but it's basically the idea that players should manage themselves, and they should arrange to play on their own. And you can, of course, create that on your own training session. So, okay, guys, you have 15 minutes. It's on you. Or we play a match. We play a game now. 15 minutes. Team Blue, you need to come with 2 rules. Team Red, or John and Peter, you make the teams. You fix the empire. So, creating this kind of organic environment inside of your structured training sessions. And then I think something we are losing a lot is, um, well, I sound a lot like a very nostalgic guy. It seems that I'm always talking about the past, but maybe a lot of the tone of this presentation is about some good practices that we are losing in modern times. And one was definitely the fact that um, you had the best female and male players as the trainers on the youth team. And then I think this picture is a little bit about that, the fact that you have the top players fooling around, playing with the kids. And the kids are always coping, and try to mirror tics and mannerisms and habits. So I think that's important. Now it's basically, okay, who's available to train our under 10 team? Okay, you are the trainer. And if we have the possibility to create as much interaction between our top adult players and the young kids, great. And then what I would like to challenge here is my last point is, we always see performance from a certain age onwards. But I would like to challenge this concept and say, okay, maybe until 13, 14 years old, we should look to all teams as performance based. And that doesn't mean that all teams will be in the final of the championship, but performance in terms of seriousness, training routines, a proper coach, teaching the same principles for all teams. So instead of starting to say, okay, that kid with 9 years old is not so interested in hockey, I would suggest or recommend that until 13, 14, we try to offer the same seriousness or the same quality in terms of training to all teams. And then later on, maybe we would go more into filtering, into talent ID, into trying to select players that match more within each other. Ernst, I hope I'm okay. If there's any question, you interrupt me. If not, I will go further. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we've got some questions, we've got some remarks, but I will keep them to the end. So you continue.
Okay. Then I saw a video here that I think it will be cool change because I'm only showing pictures and I like video a lot. And I think very important here is this two always fancy words for fancy code like differential learning and multi-sports. But again, particularly because we are losing the background that once we had of players play a lot of basketball or football or volleyball with their friends or in school, because we are losing that time. I think it's more and more relevant that we are bringing that to also our hockey sessions. And I had a situation here in Germany that I like sometimes to do some football warming up with some kids. And I had a very, very stiff colleague that told me like, hey, Bernardo, this is hockey, this is not football. So I don't like to do this and to lose time on playing football. So, okay, I thought, okay, this guy's a bit too stiff for me. But my point is, it's important that you are exposed to different game and different physical and technical experience. Let's say that gives you, again, it stretches your toolbox. So in a time where outdoor time is very reduced, I think that's important. The other important thing is also expose players to differential learning. Our sport demands a lot of adaptability. So and nowadays on social media there are a lot of cool pages that show different kind of drills, mixing different balls, different sticks, and I think that's very important. So I brought this small self-pass video. It was about a clinic we did, and I think there are a lot of interesting ingredients that we already spoke to show you before we go further in the presentation. That's what it's all about. Mama, if that's moving up, then moving, that's the method, and I'm moving on to rep it. Discovers how I like it, laying beats down on the structures. Piling up the juice, and I'm stirring up the buckets. Stay hurting instrumentals, putting rappers on the crutches. Rebels up the ages, get your own places. Cook yourself something, stop living in the basement. I'm 5 stars, why waste your time to rate it? Chuck the hater rate, bitch, I'm always hydrated. Parents always saying, wanna know where to find ya. Always on your ass, gotta always remind ya. I'd rather hit the fret up, girls getting on my testicles. A minute now, I'm living for the moment. Love money is my slogan. I guess that I'm chosen to lead a group of kids who find it hard to focus. We're trying to reach the dreams. Move out the way, please. Hello, it's the podcast. I never met on the beach or do my own thing. I met up and get to the sky. So sorry, little mama, gotta do my thing. Hello, it's the podcast. I live in bed on the beach or do my own thing. I met up and get to the sky. So sorry, little mama, gotta do my thing. Okay, I'm moving, and if you didn't know, then where the fuck have you been? I'm at the top, sitting on the throne, nigga, I am glued in. If this would not be right if I had lost, then you win. But a nigga gotta eat, I'm all known through the streets. Put a couple dollars up, dollars up. Life is just a cycle, but I'ma be alright though. My fashion statement is a straight jacket, like I'm a psycho. Light slow in the booth, and I'm short, so I got the mic low. I'm so explosive, like time bomb, I bomb like nitro. Boom! A motherfucker landed in the room. Palm trees and women, all keys is venom. Khaki your cargoes, as long as money is venom. Yeah, you touch paper, but you don't touch money. All these carrots in my jewelry, I got people. All right, so that was a long clip, but I think there were a couple of ingredients that I wanted to show you in terms of playfulness and experimenting and being adventurous and being risky. So that's one of the points. For me, I think it's a very important point, and I think luckily we see that more and more in the conversations about coaching. So I have a couple of different examples here. First of all, I think you might have heard about this match play cards. That's from Jack Rolfe, and it was a great idea. basically he has a deck of cards with different rules and instructions and fun games, and basically you can use it as a training aid. You can use it yourself as a coach, or you can just deliver that to the players so they organize the games. So, and then depending on the card that you are dealt with, you have some conditions to play in the game. And I think it's a very organic way to create um, a player's regulated environment. Then the picture above is last weekend. I was there helping Croatia, and then one of the tasks we did in the or the group tasks we did in the weekend was we divided some groups, and they needed to analyze the match that we played before. So for them was a new experience, but you see it is very interesting because you get the players really involved with the game ideas. They are really being critical towards themselves and to the teammates, and I think it's a great exercise. If you want to involve players, I think it's for sure a couple of coaches around they do this kind of activities, but I think it's very important that you involve the players in the management of the team. Then I will take the picture in the right. I think that's a football image. I'm sure some of you recognize it's Carlo Ancelotti, is the coach of Real Madrid, and this is a very interesting image because I think this is the last minutes of the semi-final of the Champions League, so a very important moment, and a coach that is known by leading teams to win literally everything, and in this decisive moment is open enough or smart enough to ask two of his experienced players their opinion, and it seems that they kind of choose what would be the next substitution. So I think it's a brilliant example about how to be involved and how to involve players and how to allow them to take serious decisions as well. And but the last point on this slide is before I show you, this is the image. This is a video that has a couple of years when I worked in Venlo in the Dutch club. And this kid in the image that you see, he grew up between being always around me and his father. We were coaching the senior teams, and he was always around us with tactical boards, coaching, and so on. And he was, of course, he had no option but to be a hockey player and to be around coaches because his coach was Niels Thijssen, who was also very famous as he coached Belgium national team. And last week, some days ago, I was visiting them. This is as maybe 9 years difference, and this kid now is in the national team under 15 of the Netherlands. So, but what I want to see, I hope there is sound, so you will see how he is a player, but he's a coach in the sideline as well. So this is just a funny example about how players can coach and regulate themselves. Of course, this is just a fun twist. And I'm getting into the end of the presentation. I hope I'm still on time. I try to be very swift here. I think this is a very sensitive area in youth development because now we read and we see a lot. Okay, they need to have always fun. It needs to be fun, but again, I want to pledge here for a balance on that because first of all, if you always have fun, there's no fun anymore. You don't value fun. If I'm always having fun, if I'm always in my hometown in the beach, I don't value that anymore. So it becomes not fun anymore. So fun is a matter of management as well. So of course, fun needs to be there. The practice needs to be enjoyable. The experience of playing hockey, of playing sports, needs to be enjoyable. We can never cross a certain line of well-being and safety, but fun is not always. We should not always aim to have fun, because if we want to develop players and people, things are not always fun. So you need to have a sense of duty and a sense of responsibility, and you need to cope with situations that are not fun. So goes to my second point. Stress is fundamental. I mean, not much stress, and this needs to be balanced according to the age and the mental ability of the athletes. But we need to have environments where stress is in a certain way present there. I can imagine that this can sound a bit controversial for some of you, but I truly believe that, and from all the research I see, I'm afraid that we are looking into sports development sometimes um, with the wrong prejudice that stress is something that is negative for the children. So again, you need to address that and manage it in a balanced way. Maybe we can talk later about a couple of examples of exercises of small-sided games, selection moments. I think there's been a big discussion, particularly in the Netherlands. I don't know if in other countries, about the stress that selection moments represent for young players. Whereas I think it is important that they need to be a bit nervous the night before. I mean, that's part of the game. It's part of the deal that if you play a final, if you play an important match, yeah, you will have a lot of stressful situations there. So to isolate the players from that perspective, I think it's a wrong move. And again, on that, and this sounds a very serious slide, but real consequences are important, because you see a lot kids today, they are maybe not so used to follow rules, or they are used to look for smarter, lazier ways and shortcuts, which is also a way that to achieve things, and I think it's also a way to get along in sports and in life. But I think we need to bring some real consequences. So I give you an example. Sometimes in trainings, it's a very simple and clear example. Sometimes at trainings, we have the end game of the end training, all right? And we say, okay, this 11, 12 players of the team A, the team that wins, those 11 players, they are definitely in the selection for the match on Saturday or Sunday. So I think it's important that we bring some seriousness, or we put some things at stake in the training environment. And okay, that's just another tip, but I think it's in this line, it's important that you shift scenarios. So okay, hey boys, hey girls, we have a friendly match tomorrow against our neighbor team. And then when they get there, maybe you tell them, okay, I'm not coaching today, I'm the umpire, or I'm just watching from the stand. You need to organize yourself, and you need to coach yourself. So this unpredictability, this need for improvisation, is very important. So if we want to stimulate creativity and decision making, yeah, I think this is all a little bit related, but to stimulate a culture of creativity and flair, or to at least allow some space for there. I think nowadays, again, because we are so focused on attack, winning, results, we don't have that much patience for individualistic characters. And I need to say it myself, sometimes I also don't have patience, because you are with your adult mindset thinking about, okay, why didn't he pass the ball there? Why did he went for the, or did she went for the dribbling instead of passing? Which is for sure maybe the most effective decision. But if we really want to allow space for creativity, we need to allow space for characters that are a bit more individualistic. They will fail more. Then we need to have some patience, and we need to create some room for failure. And again, I think this relates with my previous point. You need to bring some uncertainty. You also need to have some routine. Players need to have some safe grounds. They need to, because some players, they need to feel some routine, collective routines, individual routines. But you also need to challenge even those players. You need to put them in uncomfortable situations. I think it was Rick Charlesworth that says that he wants to trouble the comfortable, and to give comfort to the uncomfortable, something like that. So I think that this balance is the right thing. And of course, you can have that with games, challenge, competition. I would stimulate you to add all these elements of competitions. It can be just a plain warming up, running. Can be just a small 3v2, whatever you do. Add moments of competition and where there's something at stake, and it can be something fun. It can be like, okay, the losing team needs to make a stupid dance, or the losing team next training needs to bring a, I don't know, a Fanta to the winning team, or the whatever your wherever your creativity goes. So I will end now because I'm talking a lot. I hope you are still there and you're still following me. I want to give you this idea because for me, this is another point that we are losing a little bit. I see the majority of the clubs is that I arrive with my training bag, with my stick bag. I have the training. The coach tells me what to do. End of the training, I put my stick bag. I go on my bicycle, or my parents, they pick me up and I go home. And that's my full interaction with the game and with my teammates. And this happens more often than not. And I think, getting back to some of the points that I discussed before, if you can play with your friends, your neighbors, your classmates, if you maybe before the trainings you have a meal with them, or after the trainings, if you go sleep over into the goalkeepers, I think, one, you get a team that is more united with each other, and two, their experience is so much nicer that they will also be more engaged with the sport. So I will tell you briefly what these pictures represent. I coached last winter. I coached my under 18 team of my club here in Hamburg, and this is about the indoor season. Hamburg is the strongest region in Germany in terms of indoor. This generation of players, they 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 were always the fourth or the fifth club in Hamburg. Okay, um, so I started to coach them, and I saw, okay, they were a big group of friends, and they were in the same school. They really loved to be with each other, also outside of hockey. And then we had certain rules in the club. So you see the first image, they are just having a meal with each other. They were even with the tracksuit. The second image is that we have certain rules for when we travel to the matches. Everyone should be using the club suit. But these guys, they love to be dressed as homeless guys. So we allowed these two guys to always use their Lakers clothes and their very weird garderobe. And one of them was always using this kind of gloves that look like the gloves from the robber from Home Alone. I don't know if you recognize. So I told them, okay, if we become the Hamburg champions, I will spend an entire day dressed like Marv from Home Alone. And that's, you see, the last picture is the picture that we not only qualified, we were the Hamburg champions, which was, I think, very rare in the history of our in the story of our club. So what I want to tell you here is, I think it's important that we also create more than hockey, more than training environment for the players. You know, I remember when I was a kid, if we had a match at 7 in the morning, I'm always talking with my friend that is the goalkeeper that took me to play hockey. If the match was 7 in the morning, as stupid as this sound, we were there at 6:30, just around our club. I don't know why, but I guess I know why. I guess it's because we loved so much to play with our friends, and we loved so much to play hockey, that we just wanted to be around as much as possible. So I would like to challenge you to create that environment for your young players. I think that will be it. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I didn't speak too much or too less. And yeah, I would love to answer any question.
I gotta remember. I gotta remember when I'm talking to you and I'm saying I want a presentation of 30 minutes. You go for an hour. So next time I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you I want a presentation for 10 minutes.
I hope there's people there.
There are still some people there. There are still some people there. So you can kill your screen share, and then you can see what's happening on the screen as well. So let me bring on a couple of questions and remarks here. First one from Javi Telechea. So you talk a lot about the freedom for players to develop their creativity. And he has seen before that excess of that can lead to players who do not understand the game anymore or not enough. How do you balance that?
Uh, I will say the thing that I hear the most now in podcasts and so on. That's a very good question. I think, Javi, maybe if I didn't express myself w- well, I think this is not just about freedom for the players. I think the coach, it is about a balance, because it's what you say, particularly in societies where the kids are not used to regulate themselves or to play games and so on. You need to guide them a lot. And I don't want to underestimate the role of a coach here, because I think this is always a balance. And that's why I had that slide where there is a blender, because this is not only about freedom. I do think that we lack a little bit of freedom in the majority of the clubs I see. So that's why I wanted to claim the case for a bit more freedom, a bit more self-regulation. And also, Javi, and you are an experienced coach, sometimes you just guide the players into a certain area where you want to go. So of course they are still the ones thinking, they are still the ones finding their answers, but maybe you are giving a little bit of steering in there. So for instance, okay, in, if you ask the groups to do video analysis, maybe you give them a couple of hints or a couple of principles. Okay, well, I want to see if what's our recovery behavior, or I want to see if we are disciplined in our zonal system, or maybe I think that's the role of the coach, and that's why the coach is always important. And also that's why I don't fundamentally agree when, and you see that in a lot of coaching courses, it seems that being a coach is just asking questions, and I think that's wrong, because you need to provide answers, or at least to help a lot on finding better answers, because I want to believe people like us, we spend more time and more brain energy to study the game. So I think we have something to say, and we have something to support for sure. So I hope,
Absolutely.
yeah, you understand the balance here. Yeah.
Absolutely. Question from Bert de Boer from Kampong. Does the entrance of all the physical data in our sport kill talent?
Um, um, I think data can only help. I mean, more knowledge about the sport can only help. I think physical data will help us, for instance, to prevent more injuries and to have healthier athletes. So that cannot be a problem. Uh, I think it's more about, okay, how to use the data, and how the physical uh, aspect of the game, and also the physical misconceptions about the game, are affecting the technical the technical part of talent, because the physical part of talent is physical, can be also part of you being talent. I think, again, Ernst with the beer belly, he's very skilled, he has amazing hands, but if he doesn't have the physical talent, yeah. But I think you mean more in terms of technical skills. uh, maybe I'm still maybe a bit purist here, where I think the technical is still the basis of it, because you can run sprints when you are 9, 10, 12 years old, and you can be very fit, whatever being very fit at that early age is. uh, but if you don't handle the ball, if you don't know how to handle the ball when you are 16, 17, 18, you can be the fittest guy around, but you will not be a effective player, or a good player. So yeah.
Mhm. David Reed from Ireland. Do you not think that players of any sport are technically better today due to better coaching tools like analysis, etc., much of which has come down from the expanding professional game?
So So David, so if the players are technically better today, I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult question. If that's the main question, if the players are technically better today, I don't know. I think they are definitely uh, educated in a different way. So, for instance, you see now everyone can do a backhand pass or backhand shot, right? And that's quite complex and that's very difficult. Everyone can throw an aerial ball. Um, okay, that's great. But if you see, I would say 80% of the players, when they want to do a pass, the ball goes bouncing. Or the players cannot stop a ball with an up straight backhand receiving. So better, I don't know, different for sure, different. I think the game brought some stuff and changed other stuff. Um, for instance, it's very rare players that can do in movement a nice forehand pass. And back in the days, you had more of that. So it's difficult for me, and I don't want to say something that you would pin me for that. But definitely different, and I think the video tools, and I think hockey is amazing in that. I think hockey is so advanced in terms of so advanced because we started with that way before a lot of sports. So you have really magicians in terms of video analysis, and I think it helped the game a lot in terms of the game logic and in terms of tactical logic. I think we are very advanced on that, although we don't have so many tactical diversity. So we understand the game a lot. I don't know if that is really coming down to the technical quality of the game. I don't know how to answer you. I don't know if someone else here has an opinion about that. We know more the game. I don't know if the players are more skilled because of video analysis. I don't know.
In all honesty, I think that every technical advancement will always help, and every extra bit of data will always help in whatever part of the game. But it's about the balance. It's about the balance between yeah, the original or natural stuff and managing the data and sharing the data. And sometimes you don't need to share it all, but sharing the important part, that is the key thing here, I think.
And I think also, and depends. I think video you can use video also with 14 years old kids. But the video analysis and the video presentation with you do with a 14 years old will be very different from a top international player. So I think
Agreed.
it goes also about how you bring the flavor of the video for the players and the level in question. But for sure,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
video helped everyone, as in analysis, but also helped people in smaller countries to have more access to better hockey and more advanced ideas. So
Absolutely.
only be
A
great.
different kind of question here from Johnny Cairn from Ireland here. So in a school environment here in Ireland, they tend to put the least qualified coaches with the youngest group, rather than actually prioritize this age profile to giving strong foundation. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's why my mate Johnny came back to hockey to change that. I think, but I think I understand Ernst and I understand Johnny. It's like I understand the temptation of okay, our under 18 they have a chance to fight for the title or to be in the playoffs or something like that. Okay, then we need to put Johnny there. Uh, yeah, but then our under 12 they are with uh, a part-time 16 years old boy that just is counting the minutes to get some bucks there. So I think it's I mean it's difficult because you want the balance and okay, it's very difficult nowadays to find enough coaches. I feel in our sport, so it's difficult to puzzle. Depends on the structure of the clubs or of the countries. For instance, I see here in Germany there is the clubs have a bit less coaches, but what they have is a system of professional coaches. So they maybe have 4 or 5 professional coaches, and they are kind of puzzling those coaches on the teams. So depending on the needs of the teams, but also, okay, we have a weak under 12 team. Okay, so can we have one of our experienced coaches, at least in half of the sessions there, with one of our young coaches? But overall, I would say, Johnny, a lot, I think it's about ego, because experienced coaches or older coaches, they don't have much patience to be with 10 years old or 12 years old anymore. So, but I think maybe that's the way to go, to have more skilled coaches with younger ages, I think.
Agreed there. Final question here from Cristina Escobar from Argentina. How do you manage your creativity as a player and your coach's thinking? I'm supposing if they are not aligned here.
So the question is if I am a player, how do I balance my creativity as with my coach, right?
Yes, yes.
I think with a lot of shouting back and forth. No, well, I think I can always sound romantic here and give you some good answers. I think you need to understand the players. I think that's why coaching is more than just being in the pitch. What I would suggest is, and that's, I think, came a bit later in my coaching development, is don't underestimate having a lot of coffees one-on-one with your players. So you know them a little bit and they know you, and then you find a closer platform of understanding and respect to each other. But overall, again, if we are talking about development, which is different to top sport, but also in which stage of development are we? Are we talking about a 10, 12 years old, or are we talking about a 18 years old player that is already getting involved in the senior team? But overall, I like to create a room for these creative players to express themselves. And even normally there are also people, they like to express themselves also in a humoristic way. They like to be challenged. So I think it's a nice to click with these players. But then it's about the balance. Everything is about the balance. And okay, you tried to dribble 4 times and you lost 4 times the ball. Hey, buddy, maybe your skill is not to dribble, so I think it's finding a balance and to access the situation, but overall,
Communication.
yeah,
Communication.
overall allowing them to explore themselves, and then to see, okay, because sometimes those dribblers, they will solve you a game that is very compact. They will unlock the situation, so you need to allow them to make mistakes and to try their skills. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up now because we've been talking now for almost 80 minutes
Sorry.
already. So we are going to wrap this up here. Thanks very much, Bernardo, for sharing the knowledge with us. For those of you who are still in the room, I will be going to the seaside for next week. So no coach chat next week, next Friday. I'm taking one off. But the weekend, you have a lot of hockey to watch with the Women's World Cup, who's starting tonight. And on the 15th, Friday, the 15th of July, we will have another coach panel talking about that, specifically that World Cup of women's hockey. So we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. And Bernardo, thanks very much for your time here.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao, everyone.
Bye,
Well.
guys.